once again to my special few minutes together with you. Now, last week I started, you remember I told you all about my little book, The Answer to Almost Everything. And in this, I think there is the answer to almost everything. But do we know it? In here it's all there, but I don't want you to sit for an hour reading this. I'm going to go through it very briefly and so that you can get it. But we had a bit of it last week, and this week I want to talk about something which is very, well, everything is based on it, and it's the answer to a lot of our problems, a lot of things we can't understand. And this is the difference between time and infinity. Now, have you ever thought about the difference between time and infinity? Time, we live in time, and it goes along 1 second at a time, doesn't it? I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in a second's time. I hope I'll still be sitting here talking to you, but we know what's happened in the past. Now, that is time. It's just going along that tick at a time. But what is infinity? Infinity, we're told, and we can't understand it, there's no beginning and no end. It's an eternal present. Now that means that everything that's happened in our lives has already happened. Now it's unbelievable when you start thinking about it, but this is what the difference between time and infinity. And how do we know that we are part of infinity? Well, there's one definite piece of proof, and that is that we know that every molecule of our bodies, every bit, our fingers, our hands, they're not the hands you had 30 years ago or 5 years ago. Well, 5 years ago, yes, but everything in your body changes every 7 years. And this is why we grow older, because as we change, so the aged has effect. And of course, you haven't got the same body that you had when you were 16. And this is obviously true when you observe it. Excuse me. So in time, we're doing this one step at a time. In infinity, there's no beginning and no end. This means that if you take a ruler, just take that book as the ruler. We are perhaps halfway through here in our lives, or we hope. I'm right up at the end here at 91. I'm practically off the border. But the whole thing is this, that in infinity, I'm already dead. You're already dead. You haven't been born yet. I haven't been born yet. It's an amazing concept, that infinity, but in time, we're going along this one tick at a time. Now, how does time relate to infinity? Well, I've got a theory, and I call it the Foti theory, needless to say, and that is that time is like a big bubble. If you can imagine infinity, this eternal present. Everything's happened, everything hasn't happened yet, but there's a bubble in this infinity which we call time. So within the bubble, we are going this one tick at a time, but there's this vast thing which we call infinity, which is also there. We only are aware of the time. I hope I'm not confusing you. I think I'm confusing myself a little bit. But this is, if you once grasp this bubble of time existing in this vast open space of infinity, and of course in infinity you can't have anything, things don't have, can't weigh things, and they haven't got anything, because that cushion has got a beginning and an end, it's got a weight, and of course you can't have that in infinity. So infinity is a completely spiritual thing in effect, whereas time, everything's got a beginning, an end, and we're the only exceptions because we know we've got a beginning, but we go on, hopefully, into a different era. Last time I gave you the example, which was given to me by this Jesuit priest, of this muddy pond. We're living in this muddy pond. We're like all the little grubs going out, very active, and that's our whole world, this underneath the water of this muddy pond in this farmyard. And he said, well then imagine at the end of a period, you go to the surface and you become a butterfly. and you fly over and you see this wonderful world outside, all the beautiful sights and sounds, and you see this muddy pond, and you know all your relatives and friends and everybody is down in the muddy water, and you think, well, that's all right, they're going to come out and they'll be with us. And the same sort of principle applies. And this is why, I mean, I'm a very happy person at 91, and one of the reasons, I'm very grateful for it, I might say, but one of the reasons is that I take each moment at a time and live that moment, and I believe that is the way you should do it, and never have any ill words with anybody, or if you do, repair them as quickly as you can, because in time that's okay, but in infinity it would be dreadful to be at loggerheads with somebody for all of infinity, no beginning, no end. It's an eternal present. But that I think is one of our big problems, relating time and infinity. And I hope just these few words have perhaps brought it a little bit closer together. Now, I have shown you my little book. It's all in that, and it's the answer to almost everything. I'm not conceited enough to say it's the answer to everything, but it is this. That is, I think, the answer to, well, it provides the answer to, or the reason why a lot of things which we can't explain, and that is, we're in this bubble of time which is existing in infinity. Now, the next thing I want to go on to is the force which we call God. Now, we've always had this little image in our minds of this little old man sitting in the sky, governing everything and responsible for everything. And of course, with the advent of television and all our modern knowledge and science and everything we do, God has diminished. But he shouldn't have done, because science has said, well, there must be some force which is holding everything together, and that force can only be the term we used to use God for. So we've acknowledged that you can talk about, I mean, science fiction. What is that lovely story for, I think it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He talks about the force, but if you replace force with God, that is really what it's all about. And there is some force there, and we know that it is because all the very molecules of our hands, of this cushion, of this chair, of the sky around us, all the planets, they're all held together by some force. Science accepts this. Science also accepts that they could have all evolved from some small explosion, or the Big Bang Theory, or people haven't got any answer. I've given you the example before of a crowd of ants sitting in front of a television set looking at the television. Now, they can form opinions, and as we do, we look at the sky and we form opinions about the moon and planets and galaxies, but we're just like those ants in front of the television set. They have no more conception of how that television set works, or about the programs, how the programs are produced. They see it there and they take it and they form their own theories for it, but there's no way they can have any concept of it. And unfortunately, we are in exactly the same position. We can have no concept of the world about us, God, and how we were created and everything that's going on. And this, of course, is one of our big problems. And we don't understand life and death. I mean, this is one of the problems which we once again, we're like the ants looking at the television set. We can have no conception of it. This is why I personally think we are all capable of good and bad, and there's good and evil, and you've always got the option every minute of doing either one or the other. If you choose to do the right thing, you find things go beautifully for you. If you choose to do the wrong things, oh boy, doesn't the world collapse around you. Every wrong thing you do comes back at you like standing on a rake. The handle comes up and hits you in the face. And so it's much easier to do the right thing. And if you do, it's absolutely amazing how life treats you. You drive up the road, and you need to park, and suddenly there's a parking space, just somebody pulls out and you can drive straight in. You're looking for something, and there it suddenly appears in a shop window right in front of you. You want to see, I haven't seen somebody for a long time, say, oh, I haven't seen so-and-so for ages. Out of the shop window, that so-and-so comes. Life is absolutely amazing, and if you think that we have to go one little step at a time, whereas in actual fact we're living like on a ruler, there's the whole, we were, here's where we were born, here's where we died, every action we've done has been recorded and has taken place already. So it's much better to do the right thing than to do the wrong thing. And on that happy note, I'm going to finish. I'll be shorter today than I usually am, but unfortunately I was going to interview Tina, and she's coming again next week, so we're going to have, she's preparing a number of questions, so we'll have that next week. I've rather thrown into it at the last moment today without any preparation, so thank you for looking. I hope I haven't bored you to tears, but as long as I've given you something to think about, that's the essence of life. You've got to enjoy this moment and do the right thing. Thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you next week.